And this is the TDN Writers Room Weekend Preview brought to you by Three Chimneys. As you might expect, a very quiet weekend after the big Breeders' Cup races were run last weekend. Only a handful of major races, only a couple graded stakes races, only one grade one race on the calendar this weekend, at least when it comes to flat racing. That is the Queen Elizabeth Challenge Cup at Keeneland. And the headliner will be McCulloch for who else but Chad Brown, going for his fifth win overall in the race that, like most turf races, stakes races, he has just dominated over the years. He also has Gina Romantica in there. McCulloch will be a heavy favorite in that race. Looks like on paper in a 7-horse field, she will be very tough to beat. One of the reasons why she'll be a heavy favorite is Pizza Bianca, who apparently was going to run in this race, or at least that's what was kind of the conventional wisdom coming into the weekend, was not entered and instead was entered in the Sands Point at Belmont and Aqueduct. Jose Ortiz will ride. Now, she has not run since the Coronation Cup back in June at Royal Ascot, where she finished 8th. But no, let's not forget what kind of filly this is for Bobby Flay and Christophe Clement. And she won the Breeders' Cup Juvenile Fillies last year of course, at Del Mar. Will either one of these fillies come back in the Breeders' Cup Filly and Mayor Turf? Probably not, is generally the 3-year-old fillies that run the 3 weeks out from the Breeders' Cup don't come back in the Breeders' Cup. We don't have a big history of that. But McCulloch at Keeneland, Pizza Bianca at Belmont and Aqueduct among the 3-year-old filly division should be a very interesting week of racing. Expect the two big guns to probably both get in the winner's circle. Back to McCulloch's race, there's a couple other new faces in there, one of which is Paris Peacock. This is an interesting starter. She comes in from Ireland for trainer Jessica Harrington, has won 2 grade 3s over there, group 3s over there. I think she'll deserve some respect, as will Bella Bell, who was second last time out in the grade 1 Del Mar Oaks at Del Mar, of course, trained by Phil D'Amato, who, like Chad Brown, just excels with fillies on the grass. So an interesting weekend of racing from that perspective.
There is one other race of some note. It's at Keeneland on Friday. It's called the Sycamore Stakes, grade 3 for 1.5 miles. And I say that only because, Mirror Mission 7-2, Arklo's 4-1. We could get a starter out of the Breeders' Cup Turf from that. But the horse I'm going to be pulling for is Channel Maker, an 8-year-old, right? So far in the history of the Breeders' Cup, the following horses have had 5 Breeders' Cup starts. Better Talk Now, California Flag, Forense Fire, Kona Gold, obviously, Perfect Drift, and Channel Maker. Channel Maker, if he wins this race impressively enough, and he's 8-1, that he convinces his connections to give him another try in the Breeders' Cup Turf. And he was the top American finisher last year at Del Mar in the Breeders' Cup Turf. He finished 5th. He would be the first horse ever to compete in 6 different Breeders' Cups. 1 Juvenile Turf, and the rest of them have been Breeders' Cup Turf. So that's kind of a cool story.
Run well in 2020 as well.
Ran third.
I always laugh with trainer Bill Mott because he's got a very high-headed way of going. And I'm like, he'd drown in a rainstorm. And it's like, let's just hope it doesn't rain during the race, because he literally runs with his head up in the air. So it just shows you it takes all kinds of different kind of movements. So just because a horse is high-headed doesn't mean they're not a good one.
Now, I'm going to throw you guys what is admittedly a trick question. There is another grade 1 thoroughbred race this weekend. Anybody have any idea what I'm talking about? The jumpers, guys. Come on. I know jump fans out there. But actually, this is kind of a neat thing, because on Saturday at Far Hills is the Grand National Steeplechase, which is the premier steeplechase race run in America. And it is a rematch between Snap Decision, who will likely be the Eclipse Award winner this year among jumpers, and Noah and the Ark. Noah and the Ark beat Snap Decision by 9 lengths last time out in the Lonesome Glory Stakes at Saratoga. But that day, because it was a handicap race, Snap Decision gave him 28 pounds. He carried 168, and Noah and the Ark carried 140, 168 pounds. Obviously, was too much. This is a weight for age race. They will both carry 156. So expect to see Snap Decision snap back into the winner circle. There's also on the card the first ever running, and this is near and dear to my heart, somebody who was very meaningful to all of us at the TDN, John Forbes, who passed away last year. They have named a 2-mile turf race on the flat the John Forbes Memorial at Far Hills with a $100,000 purse. And there's actually some normal, well, I'm not calling jump jockeys abnormal, but there are some mainstream flat jockeys riding in this race. So their horses are carrying like 148. They're going against the jump guys. So somebody who weighs 112 pounds would have to carry like a 36 pounds of dead weight, a lead weight in their saddle pad. I can't get any response to the jump races Saturday, guys. No.
I love Snap Decision. Didn't women like sweep the card at a jump race meeting last week? Because it seems like because you got Kerry Bryan basically taking charge now. I think they won like 7 of the 9 races at a jump meet last week. It's like, go women, go. Like they are winning everything on the jump schedule right now.
Zoe, I have no answer. That beats me.
Bill, I spent 2 racing days this March, courtesy of Mr. Michael Dickinson, at Cheltenham.
Right.
So I now have a new appreciation for jump racing. And also way back in the day when I was with ESPN, we did the Breeders' Cup Steeplechase from Far Hills, one of the more enjoyable afternoons at a racetrack that I think I've ever spent. What a beautiful part of New Jersey.
Right.
And if I can take you down memory lane, if I'm not mistaken, I think Bill Finley made an appearance on that ESPN telecast to talk about the steeplechase horses.
Did I? I'm getting old. I don't remember. Michael Dickinson, by the way, has a horse in the 2-mile flat race with $100,000 purse. So there is actually a stakes race with some decent money for the normal flat horses on the card. Hey, when we come back, we're going to talk about the Breeders' Cup Classic. But first, these messages from one of our sponsors, Three Chimneys.
Here comes Taba. Taba in the center of the track with good-looking strides. Squares off with Cyberknife. Cyberknife takes the lead. Taba going with him. These two in a thriller. Cyberknife just in front. And Cyberknife has won the TVG.com Haskell over Taba. Jack Christopher finished third. The running time 1 minute 46.24 seconds.
Come dream with us at Three Chimneys.
Welcome back. Well, there were no preps over the weekend for the Breeders' Cup Classic, but this would be a good time again to rehash the race. Obviously, the story is Flightline. That was interesting. Ed DeRosa, who's a real good handicapper, works for Horse Racing Nation, used to work for Brisnet, put out a morning line for the Breeders' Cup Classic. And when you first look at it, you would think that he's kind of out of his mind. But then on second thought, I'm going to explain why I think Ed's straight on here. He's got Flightline at 3-5. Now, if Flightline is going to be 3-5 and what's going to be a 10 or 11 horse field, there's not going to be a 5-2, 3-1 shot behind him. This is his line. Flightline 3-5, Epicenter 12-1, Taba 15-1, Life is Good 20-1, Olympiad 30-1, Hot Rod Charlie 40-1, and we keep going. Randy, Can we possibly see in the Breeders' Cup horses as good as Epicenter and Taba going off, maybe not at 12-1, but at 10-1?
I would have I've made a lot of lines in my day. I would have a tough time seeing a horse as good as Epicenter as the second choice in the Breeders' Cup Classic and double digits on the odds board. To me, if for some reason Flightline doesn't show as he usually does, or maybe he runs a really good race, but just nowhere close to the race he ran in the Pacific Classic, to me, the only horse in the field on paper that would have a chance to beat him is Epicenter, who I think is really headed in the right direction. And obviously, a mile and a quarter is right up his alley. But that would be really surprising.
He worked really well at Keeneland, I think, either yesterday or this morning with Clariere, who'll go forward in the distaff. So he's coming in. I mean, everyone's under the radar apart from Flightline right now, but Epicenter is good, and he's been stable there, and Steve knows how to get these horses ready to dance the big dance on the big day. He's so good at that.
Randy, I think you're selling Taba a little bit short. I don't think Flightline's going to lose, but from a handicapping standpoint, probably what a lot of us are going to do is try to figure out who's going to run second, maybe second, third, and fourth for the Superfecta. Now, I have immense respect for Epicenter. He very well could be second, but I'm a Taba fan. I love this race in the Pennsylvania Derby. As I said, coming into that race and coming out of it, I don't think that I think we're just now seeing the very best of this horse. And, he was behind the 8 ball the way they had to rush him into the Kentucky Derby. And now Baffert, who's done a really good job getting him back, getting him to his best. He ran the best race of his life in the Pennsylvania Derby. And, I think that he can even improve off that race. So I'm a Taiba fan. I mean, if you make me make a pick right now or a betting strategy, it would be a flight line over Taiba Exacta. But I obviously have a lot of respect for Epicenter. Zoe, who's going to be second? If Flightline is first, who's going to be second in the Breeders' Cup Classic?
It's going to be close. I mean, I can't talk you off of Taiba at all. I can't talk you off of Epicenter. I think the thing that we need to look into is the penultimate works coming up this weekend for these horses, because that is the telling. I'm pretty sure Flightline's going to put a zinger in there. Taiba will have to wait and see what he does, because Bob's penultimate works are so important to him. We've seen time and time again, he's not going. I didn't put him on the plane. I didn't like how he acted. And that's basically Bob going from day to day. But Taiba's a very, very good horse. Epicenter always shows up, doesn't always win, but he's always right there. If you don't have him in your top 3, you are going to be in trouble for sure.
So a question about Taiba's works. They've been not slow, but they haven't been breaking the stopwatch. Just this 12, 12, 12, you look down, he goes a minute. Do you see a 58 coming out of this horse? Is that just not John Sadler's style?
Taiba or Flightline?
No, I'm sorry, Flightline.
Oh, Flightline? Well, I mean, he worked 12 and change. I think they're going to tighten the screws this weekend. He worked 12 and change last weekend, and he'll probably do the same. He always works solo, doesn't have to do a whole lot, and he has a good gallop out. So he might do it by accident. I don't see him asking for that kind of work. As far as Taba's not a good workhorse. I mean, he's not, by Bob Baffert standards, this isn't a horse who's going to take you down there in 58 and change with the jock's feet on the dashboard. If he is, you better go all in on Taiba, because he's not the prettiest horse to watch in the morning. He's got a good way of going, but the rider has to ask him. He'll only do as much as you ask him, and that marks for a good horse. He's certainly not a runoff or a standout in the mornings by any means. If he works in 101 and the jock's sitting up there with his feet on the dashboard, that's really good.